Let's pick things up there for tonight's Political Insider. Joining me, Rebecca Sinderbrand, politics editor for the Washington Post. Thanks for being here, Rebecca.
Thanks for having me.
So let's back up a bit to the question about honesty. Clinton says the reason many young voters view her as dishonest is because of decades of political attacks. Was this the defining moment of Monday night's forum for her? How do you think she handled that moment?
Well, it's certainly one of the defining moments, and of course, not going yet necessarily to the substance of that remark, because as we've seen over the past year or so, Clinton's ratings on honesty actually began to decline around the time that the email scandal first emerged and other issues. So that may be more of the proximate cause of her difficulties in that area. But when it comes to the debate, yes, that moment did crystallize for a lot of people some of the hurdles that Clinton faces heading into Iowa.
This campaign so far hasn't gotten too personal. Bernie Sanders has not gone after Clinton on her honesty. But how do you think this rivalry is building up? How close are these two candidates?
I mean, we are seeing this race heating up and getting a little bit, the claws are coming out as Iowa gets closer. We've seen over the past few days the Sanders campaign really take the gloves off. Sanders himself and others really going aggressively after Clinton's record. The Clinton team, of course, is pushing back as well, sending out releases saying Bernie Sanders is being dishonest about positions. The Sanders campaign saying Clinton is being dishonest about positions. So as the vote gets closer, you're seeing both campaigns really tangling.
What are the polls showing right now?
It depends on where you look, obviously. At the national level, we're still seeing Clinton holding on with a lead, a fairly healthy lead in most of the most recent polls, including our own Washington Post ABC poll. When you get to the state level, of course, in the early voting states of Iowa and New Hampshire, that's where the struggle is. In Iowa, of course, the race could not possibly be closer. Same in New Hampshire, where Sanders has a home field advantage. When you look further down the line, Clinton starts to regain her edge in the states that vote after New Hampshire and Iowa, but it's going to be a rocky couple weeks eking out some victories.
In that forum last night, Sanders was challenged to explain how he describes himself as a democratic socialist and actually did promise to raise taxes, an admission that has a history of sinking presidential campaigns. Do you think he adequately explained all that?
This has been one of the challenges from him from the very start, and it's something that the Clinton campaign is very much hoping to use. You saw the contrast last night, both candidates making completely opposite pitches. You saw on the Sanders side, Sanders really pushing the purity and talking about the policies, the dream policies that he would like to enact, what he would like to see the country become. Hillary Clinton emphasizing judgment and experience and the need to look realistically at situations. In each of their answers, it was framed almost in that respect. And so it's very much a clash of worldviews, and admitting that he would raise taxes is part of that kind of whole-heart worldview that Sanders has embraced.
On Monday, Politico published an interview with President Obama that touched on this primary race on the Democratic side. And the president did not endorse anyone in that interview and has not, and we don't expect him to, but his comments did seem to be more favorable to Clinton during that interview. And she even mentioned that interview a couple times. She was asked about it, but she also brought it up, smiling broadly. It was as if she had been endorsed by Mr. Obama. At one point in that interview, he said something to the effect of, actually at the very end of that interview, saying that the president doesn't have the luxury of focusing on one issue, which seemed to be a burn, if you will, toward Bernie Sanders.
Very much. I mean, that echoes one of the Clinton campaign talking points, which is talking about what happens when you're placed in a situation where you have to exercise judgment and you can't just stick to the line, where you have to compromise. That's something that we've heard from the Clinton campaign over the past few weeks, and that's something, of course, that was echoed in President Obama's comment. Of course, we've heard behind the scenes that many people who have worked for the president also support Hillary Clinton's candidacy, perhaps a slight edge over Bernie Sanders, and of course many of them work for her as well. So he's not going to wade into the primary fight. But there's really no secret where, at this moment, where his sympathy lies. Even as he's met with Bernie Sanders, it continues to be a favored tone towards Hillary Clinton.
99% of that interview with Politico, he talked about the two front runners, but he did give a quick shout out to former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, who last night in that forum did seem more at ease, getting a big round of applause when he cited climate change as the top issue for younger Americans. Do you think he's striking a chord at all? Is this make or break this campaign in Iowa for him?
I mean, it's hard to see where the make comes in. This has been a struggle for Martin O'Malley. I mean, in one way, this race has played out exactly as he envisioned it. Voters are looking for an alternative to Hillary Clinton. They're looking for someone with more of a more progressive point of view, who's really pushing ideological purity. It's just that person doesn't happen to be Martin O'Malley. And so he's really struggling to get attention and to remind people that he's here too.
Any prediction, if he cannot reach that 15% threshold in the caucus, where those voters might go?
You know, we've seen second choice voters. There's been some polling on second choice voters. It seems as though, and it of course depends on who shows up on caucus day, that Clinton might have somewhat of an edge with those voters. If Bernie Sanders, who's the clear alternative, hasn't made the sale, that they might return home. But you never know. And the fact is, caucus polling is a really tough art. Depends on the weather. It depends on which supporters turn out in which precincts. And so you can't say, if Martin O'Malley doesn't reach 15%, exactly where his supporters will go.
Days away, time will tell. Rebecca Sinderbrand, great insight. Thanks so much, politics editor for the Washington Post. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.